This is a workshop meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission Monday, February 13, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. to be continued until all items are complete. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. First of all, I'd like for you to please rise and I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as I just stated a few minutes ago, this is a special workshop meeting, and as we had agreed on last Thursday, we're going to have a workshop today to select an interim city manager for the city of Flagler Beach. According to the documents that we have here, we have several applicants and the names of individuals. We also have a couple of people that are unable to make it here. However, they will be calling in, at which time we will put them on the phone and make sure everyone's able to hear them. What I'd like to do is get some consensus on the format on how we're going to do this from the commissioners. We can have a brief discussion on that now so that we can all know where we're going and what we expect to achieve this evening.
Well, I'd like to hear from those that are here as to why they would like the job, why they think they're qualified for the job. And I don't know, Penny, are we arranging to call the two people who...
I have two phone numbers that was provided.
Okay. That's what I would prefer.
Okay. All right, so for clarity for everyone in the public here not knowing what we have here, we have actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, is that correct? Total?
And also,
5.
Rick McFadden sent an email out that he would still like to be interim.
Okay, I didn't see his name on the list.
Yeah, it came late today.
So just for clarity, so we hear from the candidates. At what point do we want to do Q&A with these folks? So they all go through their part, we listen, and then obviously we're going to have a discussion afterwards. But when do we want to have, or do we even want to have questions for the candidates, like if things come up?
I would think that, if that's okay for me.
Sure, go ahead.
I suggested it. That as they're speaking, if you have a question, maybe let them finish what they're saying, but, make a note of your question and ask it then while it's fresh in everybody's mind. Is that good?
Okay, do we have a time limit or anything? I'm just for in all fairness for everyone.
It's a workshop.
I mean on each individual candidate.
No, I don't think so.
You mean for the candidate to speak?
Right.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here and understand the process.
And then just a little bit of clarity, we'll be, we've had lots of emails coming back and forth. We'll also be discussing the contract or the negotiations of their pay and such with the interim. Will we discuss that tonight as a commission?
You would be given direction to me because ultimately I'd have to negotiate that. So any scope you want to give for that tonight, and then my expectation would be direction to staff tonight, which would be come back to a contract for you to make a formal motion on in a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
But true, there will be no formal action tonight.
No formal motion tonight. It would be direction to staff tonight. Right. It would be to choose somebody for me to negotiate with, but there would not be a contract for you to vote on tonight.
Correct. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Mr.
And just a question for everyone up here on the dais. So something that I've been pondering is this the best time to make this decision, or should we wait until after the election? So there's two different things. You have folks incoming potentially, and so there's two schools of thoughts. We could either decide it now, or we can wait till after the election. They all have their different reasons and all, but I wanted to make sure that we had that discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and I think we need to pick an interim or an acting or a somebody, whatever adjective you want to put in front of it. And then it would take until the election anyway. I don't know, most of these people don't want to be the permanent city manager anyway. I agree to wait till after the election to actually fix something
For city manager.
for city manager.
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
You want to wait till after election, or you do not want
No,
to?
I want to pick an acting interim, whatever person.
Before.
Now.
To help with terminology, acting, Mr. McFadden is acting right now. Acting is the most temporary of temporary. Acting is literally seat warm until there's an interim. Interim is a little bit more permanent. And so acting for, I would say, interim term for a month, if we say acting for a month, it just becomes problematic. The longer, and we went through this after Larry passed too, if you remember having the conversation, the longer acting is acting, the more nervous I get because it starts to merge into an interim. Because acting is really, when a city manager goes on vacation, they designate an acting. And acting is for days. Interim, as we stretch out longer, we
So an
really...
interim, okay.
So I have a question. If that's the case of voting on an interim tonight, it has been,
But we can't vote. We can.
okay, we can make a decision. Should we have those that are not running and running recuse themselves from this just selection process because they will not and potentially will not be running next term?
Well, we're not having a formal vote tonight, so tonight doesn't matter, but when the contract comes for a formal vote, they would have to vote. You're only allowed to recuse under state law if you have a voting conflict.
Okay.
So that would, that would nix the idea of having the selection after the election anyway, then.
That has nothing to do with the selection after the election, but that's just if...
I mean, for tonight, as far as participating.
Well, everybody can participate to whatever extent they want to participate tonight. My point is when there's a vote, all of you have to vote unless you have a voting conflict.
Okay. Any other questions about the process?
So there's going to be a lot to process tonight with these 7 individuals. I just don't want to rush anything. So I just want to make sure that, we don't have to choose somebody tonight. Should we have more questions, have more?
Oh, it's on the agenda to do that. Is that the best move for us to do,
Is that the
though?
best move? I just get concerned. I don't want to, I want this person to be successful, and I do not want to make, a rush decision, if at all possible. I mean, maybe somebody's going to stand out,
Well, we have to make some sort of a decision, well,
Right now, Mr. McFadden is acting. You have
but
Mr.
only
McFadden is
till
acting.
today.
somebody.
It was 4 days. So after tonight, we don't have anybody. Unless we,
Unless we
somebody.
continue with somebody
yeah.
or Mr. McFadden.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we can get started. Okay, the first we have on our, on our list is Mr. Jerry Cameron. And just for clarity, since there was a local publication that put some erroneous information out, Mr. Cameron did not lobby to me, and I'm going to make that clear. I called Mr. Cameron myself, and it was on my own accord that I did that. So I just want to make it clear. Whoever printed it, you're wrong. It never happened. He did not lobby. He does not need a job. I called him to ask him for help. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'd like to clear the air because what's been sent to me, I haven't gone on social media looking for stuff, but what's been sent to me is absolutely wrong. I mean, I had one article that said that ever since I left Flagler County, I've been looking for a job either here or in St. Johns County. Absolutely and patently untrue. I have been offered jobs in the private sector. I was encouraged to submit an application for appointment to replace a commissioner that died in my district. I did not submit an application for that. I had the Republican Party in St. Johns County that encouraged me repeatedly to run for the school board. I did not do that. I have helped a number of organizations, some in Flagler County, pro bono, with advice on different issues that they were confronting. I am here not because, and I do want to put to bed that somehow that I erred in not submitting a letter of intent. I didn't submit a letter of intent because I have no intent other than to offer what help that I can, and whether that's in the form of pro bono advice or consulting or what have you, or as service, I'm willing to discuss that, but I would not agree to take a position as an interim unless I had the opportunity to sit down with each commissioner and the mayor and see what your expectations are. And unless there's some congruity with your expectations, and unless I believe that those expectations are doable, I would not be interested in ending my career on a down note. So I've had the opportunity to be an interim 2 times before, and I can tell you that whoever you choose as an interim, it's a very interesting position. If you're going to be effective on the one hand, you have to create an environment where you're taken seriously. There is a tendency for folks on the inside of the organization and the outside of the organization to say, you're not going to be here very long, we don't have to listen, we don't have to pay attention. So that's something that even managers that haven't done interim before have not had to contend with. And the other side of that formula is that an interim can often, if they understand the game board, can take care of problems that maybe a mid-career person wouldn't be interested in doing. So, given that, I will tell you that I have not called anyone looking for a job. I've had a number of people to call me. I've returned calls, and I have met with people that asked to meet with me. But as far as soliciting for a job, if I can be helpful, there's great satisfaction in that, and I'd be willing to do that under the right circumstances. But there's no one that I have laid out plans with, called, lobbied. I've been asked about the city manager, Mr. Whitson, and I have uniformly said that when I was the county administrator, that I had no difficulties with him. We worked well together. What happened after I left, I don't know, but that's about all I have on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do you have any questions, commissioners?
Not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Cooley? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Well, I had a question about his bio. I had actually emailed you earlier today. I'm not sure if it's the right email or not. I was just on your bio, you didn't have any dates listed to say how long you held these jobs for. So I was just looking for dates to know experience levels.
Actually, what happened is late last evening, I got a text from the chair that asked me to send him a bio. I didn't have anything other than what you have available because I'm not preparing for a job. And quite honestly, the Super Bowl was on and I wasn't going to develop one.
Well, then can you answer how long you were the county administrator for Flagler County and also the assistant county administrator for St. Johns County?
Assistant county administrator, just under 10 years. County administrator, I think it was a total of 2 years and 4 months.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have John Drago. Is that a call-in or,
No, Mr. Drago.
oh, I'm sorry. How you doing, sir?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend my colleague for saying a lot of things that I don't have to say relative to soliciting for the position, et cetera. I am interested in a position on an interim basis, not full-time, because I've already done my time full-time. I'm familiar with beach communities, having managed 2 of them, one of them Daytona Beach. And just to give you some other highlights that may not be on the documents that I sent to the vice chair, 2 of those cities that I managed, I was the longest tenured manager. Now, the one city, Okeechobee, sits centrally in the part of the state. When I took the position, I'm originally from New York, so I want you to visualize a New Yorker sitting in Okeechobee, okay? And lasting there for over 10 years or 11 years, whichever the resume says. And there was a lot of good...
Can I pause you just for what, we don't have his paperwork. So the paperwork you're referring to is not in front of us.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can provide it. I did provide it to the vice chair because she called me, just unless the clerk has it.
I told him to send it. Did you send it to both of us, or?
No, I only sent it to you, Vice Chair.
I printed everything you sent from the week,
Okay.
So I guess just to get us caught up, since we don't have your resume, if you could just give us a little cliff notes.
Okay. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. We'll start with the city of Okeechobee. I was there from 1986 to 1997. I was the administrative assistant for the city of Winter Springs from 97 to 99. I was the city administrator for Longwood from 99 to 2009. And the business enterprise management director, which was a deputy city manager's position at Daytona Beach from 2010 to 2018. Now, I know I would surmise your next question is going to be, what have you done from 2019 until now? So, what I've done since that time is I'm affiliated with the Florida League of Cities University with Lynn Tipton, and I do charter review and strategic planning. I serve on my HOA board where I live, and I don't want to brag about that one.
Same here.
I serve on the Orange County Board of Zoning Adjustment as its vice chair. And lastly, I have a small team of colleagues that develop and put on candidate debates. We develop questions, we have a venue, we bring the candidates in, we ask them a series of questions so the voters can get an idea of where they stand on issues. So that's my time from 2008 until now, 2018 until now. What other things have I accomplished that hopefully you will get my resume and all the backup material? I managed the removal of all hurricane debris on city streets within 4 days, twice. And I received 100% reimbursement from FEMA both times. The utility plants that I managed, when I was in Daytona, just let me back up. My responsibility was I directed and supervised the Public Utilities Department, the city's municipal 36-hole golf course, the Florida Tennis Center, Halifax Harbor Plaza and Marina, fleet maintenance, parking enforcement, Jackie Robinson Ballpark, Municipal Football Stadium, and the Main Street Pier, which was Joe's Crab Shack. So when I came on board in Daytona, they just terminated the lease on the restaurant, so I was involved in developing the new lease, but I was also managing the $6 million renovation to the pier and to the restaurant, and later developed a lease agreement for Joe's Crab Shack. I served as the interim finance director for for Daytona Beach. And we developed a $200 million blueprint, which included 800 employees, and we used cost centers, and it included 5 CRAs, which I believe you have a CRA here, and 1 downtown development authority. I facilitated twice when there was a hurricane beach renourishment. And as the business enterprise management director, I was responsible for coordinating new business and related infrastructure improvements. That's the Reader's Digest version. I'm sorry you don't have the documents, but I'll be able to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
I have a couple questions. I apologize. I just assumed you sent it to Penny as well, and I've been running around all day.
Yeah, I understand.
So we'll get it to everybody.
Okay.
Do you have a relationship? You mentioned FEMA. Do you have a good relationship with FEMA, FDOT, all the big players?
Yes, anybody that's been in city government or county government will tell you, you have to develop those relationships because that's where the money is. Sometimes the rules aren't the way you like them, but it's their rules, it's their money. And FEMA, well, we had 2 hurricanes at Daytona Beach. I had a lot of claims to submit. And so FEMA has this sliding scale. If you get the claims in within 30 days, you get 75% of reimbursement if they approve it. Then after 30 days, it's 70%. Then after 60 days, it drops down to 65 and less. So the quicker, the problems you have with hurricane damage reports, first thing you have to do is you have to secure a contractor to fix the repairs. So that means the city has to suspend its purchasing rules, claim an emergency, and allows you to start to negotiate with contractors to get the work done, because FEMA wants to see that within a time frame. And it also benefits the city because you get more money. The state gives you 25%, you have to put 12.5%, and the biggest portion is with the federal government. So if FEMA has these set of rules that you have to work with, you have to work within the rules. So you have to develop a memo, you got to develop pictures, you have to show them the contract and the cost and the time frame in which to get it done. And if you succeed in that, then the reimbursements are easier for you. If you stumble along the way, they're the ones that look through the documents, and if they see something they don't like, they kick it back because they're not really want to give you the money. You have to earn it, and you got to submit the documentation. So we were successful in that. We kind of streamlined the program. So we had the memo streamlined. We had the contractors lined up. Now, the biggest contract, the contractors that you need the most is going to be roofing. They're the ones that are the hardest to find. And in this state, the law says you cannot go out of state to get a roofing contractor. He has to be certified and licensed in the state of Florida. Otherwise, you get all these people coming in and they'll just take advantage of the residents. And then we streamlined the permitting process also, at least to the residents. And with the utility plants, we'll suffer some damage to that. We did spend some money on upgrading the generation system. So in the wastewater plant, we put in a $1.2 million generator. It was a tier 4, so it met all federal regulations. And what we did was we would turn the generator on 24 hours before the storm event, because the power company will shut you off because they want the power to distribute it to other people. So that generator allowed us to run on generation until the termination of the storm, and then the power came back on. And we did that with the water plant also. And I can say that during the time that I managed the utility system, we had no spills and no lift stations overflowed. Now, the discharge to the reuse water on one of the wastewater plants was to the Halifax River. We have a permit to do that. So we were proud not to be able to take water that was not treated and put it into the Halifax River. That just helped the environment. So we developed a plan where we could discharge the reuse water. You have to understand that when there's a storm event, people are still going to use their bathrooms, and you still have to treat the reuse.
And then, John, I have one more just quick question. We're going into budget season. Can you talk a little bit about your budget style and how you work with commissioners and our finance director?
Well, I don't know if there's a style. My preference has always been to find out what the priorities are of the commission over and above your normal operating cost. And then the commission really needs to prioritize what priorities you want, like say 3, given the cost. So the model that I would prefer which is I like to start in January, and I like to have strategic planning sessions with the commission. We go over the basic operations of the city, so I get a consensus from each commissioner that yes, this is what we want. Then we hone in on the priorities. So one commissioner might want A, one commissioner wants B, C, D, E. We'll come back with the cost, and from there you make a determination as to what priorities you want relative to the estimated revenue stream that we would collect in order to meet those priorities. Now, the challenge to the commission is if you get somebody to come in here and say, I think you need to add a priority, my past commissioners would ask, what priority do you want to terminate in order to put yours in place? Because there's a cost associated with it. And I know your revenue stream is not really that good, per se. You're limited, or your revenue stream is compressed. So probably the only area where you can get additional revenue, if you can't get it from the state or county, is ad valorem taxes, and we know that's a double-edged sword.
How do you, so you have 6 individuals up here that can have 6 different lists of priorities.
It's
So how are you going to determine whose priority is the top?
I think if I follow my model, there's going to be a consensus building relative to those priorities. And that can only be done by the commission. I can give you advice, I can give you some options, but the bottom line lies with the commission. The residents elected you to make those decisions. Now, you're going to get information from the residents, I'm sure you are, and you should. And from there, it's a matter of how good are you at negotiating among yourselves.
I understand what you're saying, but that's one of the challenges we've had here. So that's why I'm pressing you on it, because
Mayor, I've been at this
causing a lot of problems here.
Mayor, I've been at it a long time. I know the manager's position relative to the commission, and what I laid out to you works, in my experience. You didn't hire me to make the decisions for you. If you did, it would be easy, but then it's not easy.
Okay.
I have a question. You briefly touched on a few projects that you have worked on in Daytona. And can you elaborate a little bit more on your experience with capital projects, seeing how we have 5 large major projects coming into the city right now?
That's probably, again, prioritizing what capital projects get done in certain order. There's an order and method concept that probably needs to be looked at relative to Flagler Beach. And the question is, if I were to give each one of you a set of balls, how many balls can you juggle at one time without dropping the balls? 3, 2, can't be 5. It's got to be 2 or 3. You probably do okay. Capital projects work the same way. The other area is I would need to know at what point is where are the capital projects in some processing point, and what are the impediments to get those projects completed? Is it funding? Is it the state? Is it the county? Is it the federal government? And then we have to work around those impediments. If it's a matter of, and then the other problem is under state law, you have a system where you just can't go out and find a contractor. You either have to bid it, you have to do an RFP, you can piggyback, you have engineers that have to develop plans, you have to look at those plans, you have to do some value engineering to say where can I take from here to put there, but keep the cost at whatever the cost is. I wish there was an easier way I can explain it, but I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version of how it basically works.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bailey.
Yeah, how do you view your relationship with staff? What kind of management style?
Well, when you get my documents, Commissioner, here's a one-page management and leadership style. And, but basically, I'm one that will, first of all, the staff members should do what the position they hired for to do. That's number one. That's the bottom line. Then after that, I want to make sure that I give them all the support that they need for them to be successful. And I know there was a comment here prior to that about the interim manager being successful. The interim manager can only be successful if the commission is successful. It's not the other way around. If the commission has discussions, they can't come to a meeting of the minds, that's not too much a manager can do. They have to kind of read between the lines, kind of guide the staff in the right direction. So it's going to be incumbent upon the manager to get consensus and collaboration among the commission. Not necessarily a vote, but a consensus. And then from there, if somebody objects to the consensus, they'll have their opportunity to speak. But it's got to start somewhere for the manager to go do something.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, John McHugh, I think we're going to call him in.
I'm doing well. I'm getting ready to put you on speakerphone, and I just ask if at any time you cannot hear what's being said, that you state that so I can make it possible for you to hear everything, and thank you for being on speakerphone.
Is he on? Good evening, Mr. McHugh.
Hey, good evening.
Okay, this is Chairman Bryan with the Flagler City Commission, and we have individuals that are being considered for this position to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want the position and what your qualifications are, and I'd also let you know that we do, in fact, have your resume in front of us.
Sure, excuse me, all right. Well, I worked in government for, I don't know, somewhere around 28 to 30 years, and I started in Miami-Dade County, which, I'll give you the brief of it through the resume, in a senior management position, worked my way through the career path and became a county manager and a city manager in different communities around the state of Florida. I have a management style that is geared towards performance measurement and things of building teams and things like that so that the city runs fine no matter who's at the head. And I've been retired for 2 years. I worked an additional 8 or 9 years in the private sector as the marketing director for a engineering firm down in Miami. And I've been retired for 2 years and loving life and enjoying myself. And I've looked at the opportunity of spending some interim time periods working for some communities. I don't want to do any consulting work, and I clearly don't want a long-term city management contract, but I still have a lot to offer to the community. And if there's an opportunity for me to get a position doing that, I'd be more than happy to do it.
Okay, this is Chairman Bryan. Where do you currently reside?
I reside in Orange City, which is right around DeBary, Deltona, and the land area in Volusia County.
Okay. Commissioners, you have any questions?
I have a few questions. You are currently the Director of Marketing for New Millennium Companies. Taking an interim position here within Flagler Beach, because the interim position is a full-time position, would that conflict with your current Director of Marketing?
No, ma'am, I don't know where that came from, but I haven't worked for New Millennium for 2 years. And if it's like on LinkedIn or something like that, I've tried to correct that, so don't worry about that because that's inaccurate. I haven't worked for them for 2 years. I've been fully retired for the last 2 years.
Okay. And then I have another question. It's a two-part question. It looks like you were last with the City of Orange City in 2012. How current are your contacts with FDOT, working with different entities of government that are relevant right now? Because we have 5 major capital projects going on within the city. Well, 4 major capital projects and one's a private project here within the city to ensure that your contacts are relevant.
Okay. Well, clearly I don't have any contacts, quote, per se in DOT in whatever district y'all are in. Now remember, I'm not applying for city manager jobs, and I'm not trying to correct you. I'll give you your answer very clearly, but I'm not trying to look and research what the issues that facing the city are. That would be something that I would rely on your department directors to educate me on, and personal interviews with each individual council member to direct me on. I understand DOT from a city and a county perspective, where I've sought, obtained, and got cooperation from DOT for a number of required projects in either Wakulla County or Orange City. I also had the opportunity to work with DOT from a private consulting perspective with DOT, where the engineering firm I worked for actually acted as a consultant for DOT. So I understand both sides of the equation on how to work within the DOT environment. Now, obviously, that's only one state office. You're probably involved with FEMA, you're probably involved with a lot of other offices, and my contacts aren't up to date in regards to your district, but my knowledge of the system is up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I'll ask.
Sure.
John, this is Commissioner Phillips. We spoke earlier today, so thank you for being on the phone with such short notice. I
want to thank you all the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
You're welcome. My question is, we're heading into budget season, and I'd like to understand what your budget style is, how you would, work with the commissioners and our finance director to set up our budget.
Excuse me. Budgeting is the key to every city or county that goes on in this world. I've worked in budget my entire life. I have a very strong background in budgeting. I used to teach it in 2 universities in the state of Florida. It's a system and it's a process that it's established by policies and procedures. Those policies and procedures will dictate how the budget is developed and then eventually presented to the city council for consideration. Those policies and procedures are what be my guiding force in developing that. Now, with that said, I have a budgeting philosophy that is fiscally conservative. I do not believe that just because a request is made by an operating department that it should be funded. So the way I approach my budgets are to submit what I would refer to as an estimated core budget. That would be the budget for that department to operate at the following year at the same level, given the sunk cost increases for electric and liability insurance and all those other things. And then provide the council with increments above that, and then the council would be able to pick and choose which increments they will, or which improvements they wanted based on whatever revenue projections were provided.
Thank you, John.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Okay, thanks a lot, John, appreciate it, and I don't have any additional questions, so I guess we'll be signing off with you.
All right, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope you all get successful candidates selected.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike? Abel?
I gotta call him too.
Okay.
Hi, Mike, Penny Overstreet, City Clerk of City of Flagler Beach. Hi, nice to speak to you again. So I'm here in the commission room, and I'm ready to put you on speakerphone and let you give your background or whatever questions the officials ask you and you can respond to. I just ask that if you, at any time, can't hear what's going on, you let me know so I can correct the problem, okay? Well, I'm on a landline, so hopefully it'll get a little bit better. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Having a little reception trouble, he's saying.
Okay. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, it's still, can you hear me okay?
I can. This is Commissioner Bryan, and what we're doing is we're asking you to please give us a little bit of information about yourself, your background, and why you think you can help the city of Flagler Beach in respect to an interim position as city manager.
I'm sorry, your comments were broken up really badly. I could not understand exactly what your question was.
Okay, I'll try.
Can you repeat that, please?
I'll try it again. My wife does the same thing to me. But at any rate, we'd like for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and the qualifications that you have as an interim city manager for Flagler Beach. Did you hear that?
Okay, again, we're breaking up, but I did understand the question.
Okay.
I have really two careers. I was a city manager for a little bit over 20 years, and I started in Ohio, and then I moved to Florida and to the city of Longwood, and from the city of Longwood, I went to the city of Palm Bay, which is a fast-growing city. And we had to deal with a lot of the problems that were generated by a company called General Development Corporation, which came into the city of Palm Bay and developed the city and didn't put the infrastructure in. They put the residential development in. The city had to cope with how do we develop infrastructure to include roads and water and sewer. That was a major issue that as a manager, I led a process through strategic planning where we identified how we could correct the problems that General Development Corporation had created within the city. And that those problems are actually still being dealt with by the city of Palm Bay, but mostly they have been corrected through really long-term planning. From Palm Bay, I had two other positions in Brevard County as Director of Administrative Services, the Sheriff, and I was also asked to help with an ambulance company, a private ambulance company that was in financial distress. So I led that company for just a little over 6 months. But then I moved to the Sheriff's office and was the Director of Administrative Services. Well, the primary position that I had there was to develop a human resource system for the Sheriff and also lead them through a strategic planning process so that the Sheriff would know how to reorient his operations to properly react to a county that was quickly growing. Brevard County was growing very quickly, and the Sheriff's office wanted to ensure that the Sheriff wanted to ensure that the operations that he had were meeting those growth needs as they developed. I was offered the position of city manager in the land while I was Director of Administrative Services, and I chose that transition to back into city management. And I was city manager here in DeLand
for approximately 10 years. One of our major efforts in the land was, it is also, or was and still is, a fast-growing city. And our question was, how do you adjust to that? How do you plan for it? I designed a strategic planning effort with the city commission, and we put together a plan where the city developed its infrastructure. For example, we built a new city hall, we built 2 fire stations, we expanded our utility system so into the growth areas. Brand is really, it's not just a city utility system, it's a regional utility system. We deliver services throughout a good percentage of the unincorporated area in West Brevard. So the city has a responsibility for doing that, and that was part of my responsibility, as well as I came into the city when it had been approved as a Main Street community. This construction had not been completed. Under my tenure as city manager, we did the capital construction downtown to do streetscaping in the main areas of the downtown. That also continues. The city of Land is continuing to expand its downtown as far as streetscaping and to develop areas that are more commercial. Now they're moving into residential construction and residential living in the downtown, which will enhance the commercial development. And that really started, that was part of our strategic planning and our planning that we did for a long-term projection of how the land would cope with its assets as well as the growth that was coming into the city. I stayed with the land as city manager for 10 years, and I've always taught as an adjunct with the University of Central Florida, even when I was the city manager in Brand, as well as when I was city manager in Palm Bay. When I really had a career goal, I wanted to move full-time into academia at the age of 60, and so I did that. I was offered a position at the University of Central Florida in the School of Public Administration to teach public administration and be the undergraduate director for the program. So I did that, and I did that for approximately 8 years. I taught at the graduate and undergraduate level in public administration, all courses to include local government operations, strategic planning, public policy, any course in the public administration field. I generally taught at the undergraduate or graduate level, and I was also served as the undergraduate program director. After leaving UCF, I have taught. I'm not at this point teaching at Stetson, but for several years, I taught one course. They have a public administration minor, and I taught in that minor, and I taught the course in public administration for Stetson University. So that is a summary I have of education. I also have a military career. I went in the military in 1970 as a second lieutenant. I had active duty for about approximately 2 years, not quite. And then I moved to the reserves and National Guard, and I stayed with the National Guard and Reserves for the next 24 years, and I retired also from the Army Reserve, Army National Guard, U.S. Army. So that I still live in Belen, Florida, and I teach part-time whenever the opportunity presents itself. I still do some writing. I just finished with ICMA. I co-edited a book with Bob Lee, who was a co-editor with me, a new textbook. It's the 4th edition of the Effective Local Government Manager. We just concluded that textbook and it went into publication last month. So we were not authors of any of the chapters, but we co-edited, meaning we put all we solicited chapter authors, we reviewed what the authors wrote, we critiqued them, made suggestions for possible modifications, and then we designed what chapters were going to be included in the book. And so that book is now in publication in the 4th edition. So that's kind of a summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. The only thing I haven't addressed is education, and with that I have a master's degree in public administration, which in political science, with an emphasis in public administration from Ohio University, and then a doctorate of public administration from Miller University in Fort Lauderdale. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Okay, commissioners, any questions?
None right now.
Okay.
Debbie can go first.
Okay, I'll ask my question. Mike, again, thanks for talking to me today on such short notice. Can you talk a little bit about we're heading into budget season, what your budget style is, and how you would work with the commissioners and our finance director?
I really apologize. What the connection that we have,
Can you read?
Your voice is coming in very broken up, and I'm having I don't know if you can understand what I am saying.
We can, Mr.
Let me ask the question. You can?
We can. Commissioner Phillips asked you if you could speak about your budget style.
Oh, my budget style? Okay. We really put together a program. It's really a program budget. To put together the budget, we start with really the city council, and I'm talking about my most recent city manager experience, and that's in the land. We put together the foundation was our strategic plan. When the council or the city commission set the primary short-term and long-term goals that we were going to pursue, we then took those goals and those became the foundation for what staff would develop in program budgets for the annual budget. We had somewhat of a multi-year budget, but it was primarily in capital planning. Excuse me. We put together a program budget based upon the city council's strategic plan. What we would do is, based on our planning, we would put together a preliminary budget, and then the city commission would hold a workshop. At that workshop, the staff, our primary department directors, would come in and discuss. They would make a presentation what they had planned to do with their preliminary budget for the next year. They would outline their goals and objectives, and again, it would be based on what the city commission had in its strategic planning process. Then the city commission would make whatever reaction that they had at that meeting. With what the city commission would set, we would then go back at a staff level and adjust our budget to try to react to the goals that they wanted us to meet, and so it'd be a modification of the budget. Then at a staff level, we put the budget together. It would then be submitted back to the city commission at a formal budgeting process, which was the formal council meeting, where we would take the budget through an ordinance process in 2 readings. And at those readings, then the city commission again would react to the budget. The department heads would always be present. I felt that it's necessary to have a close relationship between the departments and the city commission. So the department heads would be present. Commission would react to that budget, approve it, modify it, do whatever they felt necessary in the first reading, and then we would make adjustments after that first reading, come back on the second reading, and the budget would then be approved. So it was a multi-layered process. It was a program budget. We also had performance measures that were tied to the programs. For every program, we had performance measures that would be reported back to the City Commission on a quarterly basis. Departments would come in to the Commission. The Commission would receive beforehand a preliminary written report on the accomplishments of the performance measures. Then the city staff would come in at department heads, and they would answer any questions that the City Commission had. And on occasion, when we found that a program was working very well or the program wasn't working as well as what we expected, we would make mid-year budget adjustments. Either more money would be put in, adjustments would be made, taking money out in some cases, or reallocation of funds, or some objective would be set where we would try to correct deficiencies that had been found in our performance measures. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Mr. Mealy?
I'll have the same question from last time. What kind of relationship do you have with staff? How do you allow the staff to do their jobs, or, yeah?
Well, I really apologize for doing this, but again, I couldn't hear. Your statement was very broken up. Could you repeat that, please?
How do you relate with staff? How do you work with staff? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I firmly believe that staff has to be a partner in the whole process of governance. And by that, I mean, I explained to you the budget process that I used. In the budget process, the city department heads met with the City Commission during meetings, and they would explain how their departments were meeting particular goals and objectives that the City Commission had established during its planning process. For example, during city operations, we would hold staff meetings every week. At those staff meetings, staff would individually discuss or bring up for discussion any particular issue that they felt needed to have discussion or attention by the staff in general. Because at our staff meetings, all department heads, and as well as some other city employees that had a particular responsibility for what we may be discussing that morning would be in attendance. They would bring up issues of concern that they had, and then we would discuss those issues. So in a large extent, I think that my belief is the city manager's primary role as a facilitator. You have to facilitate the staff so that there's good communication and good coordination and cooperation. So the 3 C's that I think are essential, and I think that's one of the primary roles of the city manager is to do that. I also believe that that is the internal, as far as a city management perspective, but from my governance perspective, the city manager has a responsibility, I believe, for ensuring that there is good open communications between the city staff and the city commission. That does not mean that the city commission individually instructs staff on what to do. That is not part of what I'm saying. But it's important for me, for I think any city, to have communication officially where, say at city council meetings, city manager has to be comfortable enough to allow the city staff to communicate with the elected body and to have a dialogue over operations. It can't all, in those particular cases, communication can't funnel through the city manager, although the city manager is present when they occur.
Okay.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Have you had any experience dealing with hurricane damage on beaches, beach erosion and such? And to tie in with that, do you have connections with FEMA and DEP and FDOT?
Did you hear that?
Okay.
Do you have any experience with
beach erosion
or FEMA after a disaster, hurricane disaster?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I was city manager in 2008 when we had the 3 hurricanes came through. And so it was not just with FEMA. I mean, that was a broad, comprehensive county, FEMA state effort that we used to respond to those 3 hurricanes, starting with Charlie. And we also had tornadoes. I had a tornado came through, I think it was after the 3 hurricanes, but it was the one that came out of, I forget exactly where it originated, but it came through Lake County, came across the river, and then right through the land. And so we had very close relationships with FEMA in order to get brush removed during the hurricanes as well as a tornado. And the tornado went through one of our mobile home parks. We had enormous amounts of residential devastation with that. We had to relocate people. We had to find temporary housing. And so it was a matter of very close coordination. But it was more than just FEMA. It was, we formed a crisis team, and it was consisting of the county, FEMA, the city, and then private. We had churches as well as other private entities that were part of a planning team that met periodically to determine, what were the crises of the moment. And then, of course, we did a lot of this through our EOC. As you are aware, you coordinate most of that through the Emergency Operations Center locally to the city, but then we had to, because of how broad the crisis was, we had to ensure that we were very integrated with the county as well as private organizations.
What about coastal erosion?
Say again, please.
What about any coastal erosion experience?
Did you say coastal?
Yes, sir.
Not so much coastal. I understand probably what you're referring to with the problems that you've had with the beach and the pier, but we have not had that because we're not really a coastal city. Ours was more, we had some flooding issue because of the St. John's. We had a lot of problems with water quality. We had wells, and what we were going to do as far as discharges back into St. John's, we did not have, the land didn't have a coastal issue problem. When I was in Palm Bay, we had the intercoastal waterways, which we had a lot of flooding there. We had hurricanes as well when I was city manager in Palm Bay. I would not equate what we had in Palm Bay to coastal issues because we did not have the beach erosion that you're experiencing. We had the flooding and the residential destruction that we had to coordinate through FEMA as far as reimbursement for damages as well as to get streets cleared, get trees removed, and things of that nature.
Thank you.
It's probably the same, but it was not coastal.
Thank you.
Mr. Sherman?
Yeah, Mr. Abels, I was trying to get a little bit better of a read on your performance standards that you mentioned. I'd like to hear a little bit more on how you're capturing the analytics of that. Whoever takes over as our permanent city manager, I would like to start seeing more analytics for us as a commission to make informed decisions. So if you could speak to those performance standards that you had mentioned throughout your career.
I really am sorry to do this again, but I did not understand that.
Do you want to, you said a lot. Why don't you come over here? Come over here and say it in there.
Mr. Abels, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So my question
You're still broken up.
Okay, my question for you is, can you speak to your performance standards that you alluded to during your presentation? I'd like to see our next our permanent city manager have some sort of analytical model for us to make informed decisions moving forward.
Well, I would recommend probably the best is ICMA has a set of performance measures, and they actually have an organized unit that's what they do. That they will help the cities design those performance measures. And as a matter of fact, you have a consulting contract with a firm, Lee Feldman, who is president of the firm, and he has worked with you to send some questionnaires out to the public that you use in your planning process. But I would say that performance measures is something that is not a simple process, and it's not a quick process. When you decide that that's really something you're interested in, that has to be something that I believe your interim could start it, but your interim will not be on board long enough to bring those into reality. You're going to have to work on, I think, a separate process either through a university. For example, in the land I use, ICMA, as well as Stetson University. And you, as in Flagler Beach, also have some educational resources that you could use to help set those up. I would say initially, if you start simple, and every department have to set performance measures for every one of their goals. And one of the things that I found difficult is you can use output measures, but output measures don't really do much for you. They're good for very short views of a particular goal, but what you want is outcome measures. And I'll give you an example. In your fire department, how quickly do you want the fire department to respond? That's an output measure. But how do you want the fire department, the people that the fire department treats, to have recovery for, say, cardiac arrest? For patients that you deal with that have cardiac arrest, what type of survival rate do you want? What type, in setting other performance measures? Those are outcome measures, and they're very difficult to set, and they're not going to be something that's going to be simple. Your output measures on how many people you're going to deal with through your fire department, police department, how many arrests you would make, how much water you're going to put through your utility system. Those output measures are pretty simple to set. But in my opinion, they're not all that meaningful. What you want to work towards is performance measures. And those are a multi-year process, and you're going to need to have more than just the manager and your department head setting those. You're going to need to have somebody like the ICMA, university, or others, Lee Feldman's group, that would help you on a multi-year basis work through those and set them up, because you'll be adjusting those for a number of years to get those right. I know the manager that's here now made some very good improvements to the performance measures that were put in place in the budgets that while I was manager, he took what was there when I was manager, and he improved them. But that was a multi-year process, and he's still improving them. So it never ends.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, Ms. Abels, that concludes the questions that the commission and the mayor has, and we thank you very much for calling in. You didn't hear that.
Thank you, Mike. The commission said thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. What process will you use at this point?
The process, well, we're gonna look at all of the, well, you can tell them, we're gonna look at all the candidates and listen to everything that's been spoken tonight, and then we'll make a decision from that.
Mr. Abel, the chair says they're going to look at all the candidates that have spoken tonight, and they'll make some type of decision, hopefully, and we'll respond back to you after that's been made, let you know either way, okay?
Okay, I appreciate that very much. It's been very nice talking to everybody.
All right, Mike, it's nice talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, the next person we have on the list is Kim Carney.
I didn't see her.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, not seeing her, we'll move on to Katrina. Good evening, Katrina.
Good evening, Mayor, Chair, and City Commissioners. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the late submission of my resume, but I literally heard about this afternoon about 2:30 when Mr. Ken Parker contacted me and asked me to send my information to you. So I apologize. I know I sent a lot, and it's a lot of reading, so if you're a speed reader, enjoy. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of providing a snapshot of my experiences and abilities as you prepare to fill an important position within your leadership team. Hopefully, after reviewing my resume, you will find my experiences at the local government level, in the military, and in a nonprofit a great fit for your team. Over the past 20 plus years, I've served primarily as a city manager or in a C-suite leadership role in Florida, Michigan, and Virginia. I've spent the majority of my career working to bring positive solutions to communities by creating successful opportunities for growth for both the community and me, while working collaboratively with staff, city elected officials, consultants, vendors, and the community. I would love to apply that knowledge and experience here to achieve successful results for you and the city. Over the last 8 years, I've had the opportunity to work in communities outside of the state of Florida, but have most recently returned to the state I've considered my home since 1994, and I currently reside in Ormond by the Sea. Back in 2014, I was recruited by the Michigan Department of Treasury and the Governor's Office to serve in a community that was under state control due to its many years of inability to govern itself financially and operationally. Through hard work, decisions by the City Council, the building of a first-class leadership team, streamlining, restructuring operations, and enacting supportive policies for employees and residents, along with oversight of a governor-appointed board, we were able to return the city to its full governing capacity in just 2.5 years. My skills in operational and budget oversight, as well as directional leadership, are proven and documented. I'm confident these strengths will readily translate to bringing value to the position of the interim city manager here. I enjoy meeting new people and possess outstanding verbal and written communication skills. I can convey information in a concise and efficient manner, so I'm comfortable conducting meetings, presentations, and speaking to public groups. I've worked as a public information officer, have led emergency response teams during 3 hurricanes in 2004, worked on special community improvement projects, and as a lobbyist in the state of Florida. I've completed the FEMA's Emergency Management Institute courses 100, 200, 700, 800, and 2200 in order to assist in an emergency operations center during an emergency event. And I just did that this past year. My career profile includes working with a variety of communities where I provided efficient and professional services to enhance their profile and have in-depth experience in cultivating meaningful relationships with all stakeholders, including economic development partners, area businesses, chambers of commerce, business, education, and community leaders. Having served in the military for 20 years and worked in local government for the majority of my career, I embrace change that brings value and thrive in a fast-paced environment where multitasking is imperative. I am a go-getter with personal integrity, morals, and flexibility. My resume in this presentation includes some, but not all, of my career successes. I'm hopeful my accomplishments and experiences qualify me as an excellent candidate for the interim position. My budget style, I like to include the commission, and I like to talk to them individually and find out their needs. And then I like to meet with my staff and discuss those needs. Staff puts together a budget. I break out my little red pen and I cross out things that are just dreams and that we won't be able to fund, particularly that year. And then I bring all of that to the commission in a workshop, and I include my department heads so that they are able to present their items to the commission for consideration. My leadership style is, I believe in being collaborative, team forward, and fluid. I like to make difficult decisions when necessary in a very time-sensitive manner. I have extensive work in local government management, economic development, community relations, utilities and project management, marketing and finance within very diverse communities for more than 20 years. I still have connections at FDOT District 5, which is the district that covers our county. I still have connections at FEMA. Those people don't retire very often, and they stay forever, right? And just this past week, I attended the FCC Winter Institute, FCCMA Winter Institute, where I received training in retaining and recruiting quality employees. And I also took a webinar just 2 weeks ago on performance measurements and performance management, because it's important that you measure what's important to the city, not just to be measuring something. I also worked for Munetrics, which is it's the nation's largest aggregator of municipal data, and we provided public sector solutions overseeing all government services and government leadership consulting. So I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Cooley.
We don't have your paperwork in front of us, right? None of us have it? Okay. If you could just tell us about your last city manager job. Well, we don't have it, so
okay,
let's just talk about your last city manager job, how long it was, and how recent it was. If it was more than 10 years, then I guess what have you been doing for the last 10 years? Just kind of that little snapshot.
Okay, so most recently I've served as an executive director for a higher education foundation in Virginia. I am currently working remote for them on a consultant basis until they hire their new executive director. I worked for, I was a vice president for municipal services for Munetrics, which is in Michigan. And then I was the city manager for the city of Hamtramck from November of 2014 to July 2017, and that was on a contract through the state of Michigan. Prior to that, I started a small company called Municipal Fleet Services, or Government Fleet Services, which provided, I have a fleet of over 500 vehicles, 32 contractors, 500,000 in assets, and it was a small startup, and I was able to bring on board 12 contracts in 2 years. And then prior to that, I was a city manager for the city of Longwood. It seems like that is a common theme here this evening. I was actually the city manager right behind Mr. Drago. And I was there from 2009 to 2011. Prior to that, I was a city manager in the city of Fort Meade, which is down in Polk County, from 2005 to 2007. I was an assistant to the city manager in the city of Deltona from 2001 to 2005. And then prior to that, I was a community and customer relations manager for Florida Power Corporation for 5 years.
That's the only question I had.
Okay.
Again, thank you for responding to me at the late hour and actually showing up tonight. We appreciate it. Do you see yourself as someone who's reactive or proactive? We have 5 major projects happening potentially simultaneously, and we just can't afford to have anything overlooked. So kind of day one, hit the ground running. What are your thoughts on
Sure. So it has been my experience that I've always had to hit the ground running, like as soon as I get into these cities. In Michigan, for example, I was able to build and rebuild 3 parks within 8 months, and that's getting funding. That is, yes, ma'am. I have also done water and sewer projects. The city of Hamtramck, again, major public works projects there, as well as in Longwood and Deltona, and Fort Meade. I've built wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants. I have done sewer linings. I have worked on flooding issues, particularly in Deltona during 2004. Not only did we contend with 3 hurricanes that were back to back, but we also had 93 inches of rain over the summer, only in Deltona. And we were at risk of losing about 1,500 homes. So it was working with that lovely St. John's Water Management District to to get that taken care of. That was a challenge, but we were able to overcome that with our fabulous engineers. So I thrive off of getting things done. I am proactive as well as reactive, but I like to be on top of things immediately. I enjoy working with staff. That is one of my strong points. I have great relationships with all of my previous staff, and you're more than welcome to talk with them. And so much as my fire union in Hamtramck called me back to testify on their behalf before during an arbitration, because we had a great relationship, and it didn't start out that way, but it ended that way. So I hope that answered your question.
Answer my question. Thank you.
Yeah, the only comment I would make is, I mean, I'm impressed with the number of projects that you said you've covered, because I was just going down the list, and my fellow commissioners is saying there's 5 major projects. I'm going to give you, got beach nourishment, the new pier, new hotel coming up, wastewater system, the potable water system, stormwater system, reuse water plan, slip lining, hurricane remediation, hurricane mitigation and coordination, new condo complex coming up, new townhomes coming up, staging area, and the list goes on. So, I mean, these are the kinds of
Sleepy
things.
little village.
So, and I mean, this is for the benefit of all the candidates, because, and it sounds like it's minimized to some degree, but there are a lot of things going on here, and it's going to take a lot of coordination, a lot of planning, a lot of communication in particular. And the other thing I'm listening to other candidates and all that are, a distance away, and I'm not going to hold that against them, but by the same token, this is not going to be an 8-hour job. This requires a lot of hours. So that's for the benefit of everyone that's actually applying or, listening to this. So, I mean, I didn't want to have this lightly touched on, because that's just my short list, So anyway, okay, Commissioner Sherman.
Yes, can you speak a little bit about your public works projects that you did in the past?
Actually, I sure can. And in some of the documents that I sent over, it was actually an article that was written by a magazine that highlighted, it was by Business View magazine, which highlighted a lot of our public works projects. So Hamtramck, the city that I was a city manager of, sits in the middle of Detroit. It is completely surrounded by Detroit. So all of the issues that Michigan has with its roads and with its infrastructure also applies to Hamtramck. We had a single system which collected all of our stormwater as well as our sewer into one line that went back to the treatment plant to be cleaned. And we also had infrastructure that had not been touched in over 100 years. And so the slip lining, or actually it's called sewer lining, that was a major project. We also, I put in place in Hamtramck, we have one-way streets with parking on both sides of the street, so there's just a center lane. And we had alleys in the back, which had literally not been touched in 50 years. So this is the route that the garbage trucks take. This is the route that the residents take to get to their garages. This is the route that a lot of women who were Muslim to get to the mosque for prayer and to also get to shopping. And so that had not been touched in almost 50 years. The asphalt was no longer asphalt, it was just gravel. And so I put in place an alley replacement program. I included articles for that as well. We needed to connect a main line to Detroit's water line, which was a 46-foot pipe that had to be put in, and it was actually in the south end of our town. So the entire south end of the city, which was only 2.1 square miles, but it has about 50,000 people in it. The homes are 5 feet apart, and it's just a very densely populated urban environment. And so we had to shut down our entire south end of town to replace this pipe. I mean, you can imagine what I'm talking about. That is, I mean, it's taller than this building, actually, that needed to be connected. So it was a huge undertaking. And in Michigan, you can only do projects during the summer. So you're not able to work year round like we're able to here. And so you literally have to have such a plan in place. You have to have all of your engineering, all of your design, all of your permits, all of your everything done, because as soon as that frost law is lifted, it is, I'm not going to say that. It's nonstop for the entire summer. And so, and you needed to get it done before frost law went into effect for the winter for the next year. Let me see what else. Wastewater treatment plant in Fort Meade, as well as a water treatment plant in Fort Meade, and also in Deltona, we purchased a water company and turned it into Deltona Water. We purchased that. We were able to condemn the lines and all of that and put that into place. So we took over an entire water system there, which was a huge undertaking because it too had not been maintained over the years. So it was a lot of work that needed to be done.
Mayor?
What is your current position that you hold right now, and when would you be able to start if the position was offered?
So I am a consultant now with the SVHEF. I was the executive director there, but when I decided to move back to Florida in August, I put them on notice that I was moving, and they were fine with that. They knew I wanted to get back home. And so I'm just serving as a consultant, and I would just need to let them know that I've got an interim city manager position.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Let you know, she did email her resume, as well as Mr. Abels did as well, and I forward both of those on to each of you.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you.
Scratch your name. Mr. McFadden has withdrawn. Okay.
Really?
Lady from Hamtramck. I spent 5 years there.
So that's where you're voting.
Which was a long time, five very long years.
I know what she has dealt with there, believe me.
Okay.
That was taken over by the state, wasn't it?
Yes.
Wasn't Hamtramck taken over by the state?
She was there
Yeah.
on the state
Yeah.
contract.
Okay, Commissioners, there are some discussions.
Well, I've got a couple that stand out to me more than others, but maybe we should hear from what the public has to say.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll entertain public comment. You have 3 minutes. Please come forward to give us your name and your address.
Rick Bellinger, Flagler Beach. Personally, I'm not up there, but personally, I think you're going about this all wrong. It's kind of like an exercise in futility. You can't choose an interim city manager by looking at resumes and listening to a short presentation by each of the candidates.
somebody that's, I know it's not long-term like a full-time city manager that ultimately, hopefully it's found. But I think you need time to do your homework. I mean, we just went through this. Somebody looked really, really good on paper, but didn't get a chance to really get to know the person well enough to make the best decision. So I just, and you don't have all the resumes. You did, you know, this last woman just got up and said that she heard about it at 2:30 this afternoon. So how can you that quickly make an informed decision? So personally, I think you ought to choose an acting city manager to get you through long enough to do all the homework that's needed before you choose an interim.
Thanks, sir. Any other comments?
Steve Daly, 1764 Winsong Circle. I think he kind of said it right. We need to know the responsibilities of this person that need to be done now and carry us over. Because we can hear a lot about, because you threw in the budget and all those other things. What do we need daily for a certain period of time in your mind until we think we get it full-time? And then that's what that person would be hired to do only. We have department managers that should carry forward what they're doing. And then this person, if there's things that an executive person has to do, you hire them just to do that, if that's what we're trying to do, to get through that stretch till we hire somebody. So just, I guess the thing is, I think we need to know the responsibilities and the scope of this interim person's job. Don't make it any bigger than it has to be. Keep it streamlined, keep him focused, or her, if that's the way it goes. But the department managers need to step forward and do what they're supposed to be doing every day anyway. So I think we're trying to ask too much of this person, interim. We should just be department managers, and if you need someone to oversee them, it's a total separate thing. If the executive can only sign things or whatever we're trying to do, but it seems to me like we're going about this like we're trying to get a city manager, and we're not. We're trying to do what we need to do to get a city manager. So just be careful on what we're asking for, and like you say, we can go through this. I mean, we did a city manager search before. We paid someone to do this, and we failed at that. He gave us two choices. We picked one with most experience, and that didn't work. So just be careful on how you do this. I just think you need to limit the scope of what you're looking for above what the department managers can do and what you're required to do to get us to a true city manager.
Any other comments?
Once upon a time, when I was the clerk of court, I had about a dozen people go through Flagler College's public administration program. And one of the people who came in from the city of DeLand and taught some of those students was Dr. Michael Abels. He's fascinating. I sat on a panel with him, possibly, Mr. Chair, you did too, or you've heard from him. I'm sorry he couldn't hear all of your questions, and I'm sorry he sounded kind of gravelly, but he was really good for the city of DeLand, and he really taught well for UCF. Now, this last young lady who spoke to you, I couldn't be more impressed with the things she's done in her life to make things better. I think you have to find an interim city manager to get us going on this right track. Both of them should be good choices.
I didn't hear who the second one was, Gail.
Her name is Katrina.
Oh, Ms. Powell. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I really do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, Scott Spradley, Yorkshire Drive, Flagler Beach. My thought is that I'm a little confused about whether the objective tonight is to pick an acting city manager or an interim city manager. All right. My further concern then is that it's what's been stated already, and that is how can we make an effective decision based on, in some instances, no resumes and a few words being spoken. I heard at least two, Mr. Cameron and one other, say that before they would even consider an offer, they want to meet with all of you and ask questions and get some guidance from that. So I'm concerned. I'm not sure by Mr. McFadden saying he's not interested, whether that means he would not continue to serve as acting until we adjourn for even just a week, to give these candidates an opportunity to meet with you all. I've never seen a position this important in which there wouldn't be an opportunity to at least meet. Look at the resumes. Can we wait a week? Is Mr. McFadden willing to hang on for a week? I just think it's important that if you're going to make a decision for the interim city manager, that you have a little more information yourselves, and that city manager have a little more information from you. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Can Drew react to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that tonight is not to hire someone as interim. It would be to give direction to negotiate a contract. So there would be time to at least vet that person. If you want, I'm sitting here letting my wheels spin, trying to think, if you wanted to put off making that decision, you got commission coming up next Thursday. You could put it on that agenda. That would buy time if there were any other conversations that you wanted to have with the applicants, or have Liz run whatever limited due diligence we could do between now and a week from Thursday. But what I could do on my end is I can draft a fairly generic interim contract. We could circulate that to all the candidates, and if there were problems, objections, but maybe still be in a position to next Thursday be able to make a decision and finalize, because that's from my chair. That's the interest, is to make sure that once you make the decision, that I do everything I can to get that person in the chair as soon as we can. So I'm just trying to think of ways of doing that might keep your options open a little bit longer, as Mr. Spradley is talking about.
Thank you, Joe.
Bruno, 2700 block, Flagler Beach. I basically agree with almost everybody who got up here. I think you need a little bit more time. The resumes are not here. We made a mistake the last time. We had the opportunity to Google Mr. Whitson's name. I mean, a lot of stuff came up that no one questioned. I am impressed with Ms. Powell. For someone who only had 3 hours to put together a presentation, I think she did very well. I don't think it was fair to Mike on the phone. That was not a good interview just because of the phone. So I don't know if we can get him in before us, and if we are going to postpone it another week to get some more, insight, personal. When you meet a person face to face, you get a totally different perspective than over a phone. So with that note, good luck to everybody.
Any other speakers?
Hi, Denise Calderwood. I'm not a resident of Flagler Beach. However, I started my career here, and I'm proud to say I was a Flagler Beach police officer here, and the city of Flagler Beach paid for me to go to the police academy, paid for me to go to college, and I eventually obtained a master's of public administration. I was an adjunct instructor at Flagler College. In the past of my life, I've had experience working with Dr. Abels. I've had experience dealing with Jerry Cameron. I interact with a lot of you all. I admit I'm a public person, ran for public office. My experience with Mr. McFadden, with my sister who lost her house in the hurricane 3 years ago on Flagler Avenue? I'm sorry, 311, I'm sorry. Mr. McFadden and I laughed over my sister's house because half of her house is on 311 South 13th Street. The other half is on Flagler Avenue, and you can't do anything with it. It was 2 lots. Anyway, so he was professional and perfect, answering to the citizens, who was asking tough questions. The whole premise of public administration is effective and efficient management, okay? Ms. Powell definitely demonstrated she has the capacity, and as a consultant, a professional professional consultant that I am, that I can go into a community and actually bring people together to listen to people and actually make some effective and efficient decisions when other people can't seem to do so. And I agree with Gail Wadsworth's recommendations as far as, her top two would be my top two, and ask Mr. McFadden to stay on. All the other stuff seems to be game playing, and I'll call it out. Transparency is a big issue in Flagler County, who the leaders actually are and what they're leading and what they're following. And my concerns with Mr. Cameron, the day he came to Flagler County, I told him I could be his best friend or his worst enemy. And, things are what they are. We're dealing with the pieces of Commissioner Mullins, who's no longer here, and yet how he treated us. And, the relationships that are happening in Flagler County, that have happened in Flagler County, I'm embarrassed to tell people that Flagler County, I'm a product of Flagler County. I honor certain people here, have great respect for Gail Wadsworth, Mr. McFadden, and you all. Okay, because you all are the decision makers. Make the right decision, take the time that's needed, rely on your staff. Comment that Mr. McFadden is not a manager. He obviously can do the job for a period of time. He stepped up. He was willing to be the leader that he is. He also shared his personal experiences about some part of Michigan that I can't pronounce. Okay, and everybody knows the stories, the horror stories about Michigan. When you ask the questions about dealing with FEMA, dealing with FDOT, DEP, all of your stuff, St. Johns River Water Management, as a consultant on and off who has written projects and tried to deal with all of those agencies, talking about millions of dollars, that is not an easy thing. You have to establish new relationships no matter who you are. So please take the time and the due diligence and make the most effective and efficient decision, which is not Mr. Cameron.
Please, folks, we do practice the policy of civility and decorum. And making those kinds of comments when you leave the podium is not appropriate, and I really appreciate if you refrain to doing it. One of the problems that we have in Flagler Beach right now is not being civil, a lot of negativity, and I really appreciate it. We just stop it. I mean, in all areas. That's the reason we're where we are right now, because of the negativity in Flagler Beach on a number of levels. Social media, the regular media. Just stop it, please. Let's move on. Yes, sir.
Hi, Bob Cunningham, North 10th Street. This just seems like it's a rush process right now. I'm in agreement with pretty much everybody else that's been up here. We haven't been able to see resumes. We haven't been able to get a lot of facts, a lot of details. They do probably need to spend time with each one of the candidates for an interim, needs to spend time with each one of you to discuss, to have candid discussions. So everybody needs to get enough information to make a logical, informed decision. There's been a lot of good things said. It would just be better if there was more time and some more facts could be checked. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Anyone else?
Darrell Reynolds, 322 North 11th Street. I just have a question. Can a commissioner whose term is going to end in March act as interim until we can make an informed decision?
No, commissioner could not also be city manager.
Even after his term ends?
After term ends, yes. You don't have the dual office problem then, but you have dual office holding problem right now.
Okay. I mean, that's just a suggestion. I mean, like they're saying, I don't think we need to rush this, but we do need to have somebody in place.
I'm not committing suicide, if you're talking about me.
I just wanted your boat.
But I appreciate you. We can go fishing.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. I'm just going to make a couple of comments relating to a couple of comments that were made here from public comment. First of all, there were some comments, it was made 3 times about, or twice anyway, about us making a mistake as far as selecting Mr. Whitson. In his defense, I don't think we made a mistake. One of the speakers that was, said we made a mistake was up here at one time when we selected Mr. Whitson. And I'm going to tell you, I worked very close with Mr. Whitson, very close. And in some cases, a lot of you thought that I was working too close to him, but I was the chairman. I was doing my job as a commissioner, working close to keep Flagler Beach functioning, getting funds to come in, doing what we were supposed to do. And to his credit, he did a lot. One of them was he saved the money to the pier. But a lot of folks don't know that. But there were a lot of things that had slipped through the cracks that had not been done for years when Mr. Whitson came here. There are a lot of things that still need to be done, a lot. So the person that comes in as an interim has a tough job. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Very tough job on multiple levels, dealing with the kinds of things that I just spoke about as far as the negativity. I've never seen a town that had so much negativity going on within the last 2 or 3 years. But these are the kinds of things that person has to deal with, including dealing with some of the staff and some other individuals did not work along with him. Now, why did I vote to remove him? I have my own personal reasons. And I talked to him about those. But no, I did not make a mistake when I chose Mr. Whitson, because he carried this city for at least 2 years, and there were some things he could have improved on, and we could have continued to move ahead. But I just want to make it clear, I didn't make a mistake, not at all. So if you have the commissioners, if you have some comments, please make them.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I'd like to make a suggestion on how to potentially move forward with this process. You know, I do respect everybody's viewpoints of not rushing on a decision. I'm kind of that viewpoint myself. But between now and our next commission meeting on February 19th, you know, or excuse me, what's the next, 23rd? I'm sorry. Okay, so the 23rd. Would it be possible for, let's say we narrowed it down tonight to 2 potential candidates between now and then? It's for those candidates to meet with department heads in the city, so this, you know, we can get a good feel for what the department heads give us their feedback based on, you know, ultimately it's gonna be our decision, but hear from them. Possibly have a night where we could have, maybe we again narrow it down to 2, open up the chambers for the general public to ask questions of these 2. And then 3, also maybe open that up to our business community, have the, maybe with that same night, kind of bundle that together, let them come together and see what type of consensus we get from there. And then, you know, between now and our meeting, possibly meet with our 2 finalists ourselves individually, one-on-one, and then we form our decision at that point in time. I don't know if that's a tight timeline, but I think that,
I like every bit of it.
Okay, all right, so I think that's the direction I believe we need to go. I think that then it's a holistic approach, and you know, if we can start that process immediately, I think that's maybe the best way we should, I think that's the direction we should go.
The only caveat I'd request, I mean, we can do what you like, but I was thinking at least 3, because there may be a situation where...
we may not be able to get down to 2.
I know.
I picked 3 as well. Okay. I was going to make that as a...
I'm okay with 3.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I say that is because, you know, the candidates are interviewing us too. Absolutely. You know, and there have been many times I turned down a job because I just didn't like it.
Or if you find out that one lied, you have to go with the other.
Okay.
You need options.
Commissioner Cooley.
Well, we definitely need to narrow the field down, but I don't know how realistic it's going to be to have the candidates meet with the citizens, then the businesses, then department heads, then with us. I mean, you're talking, that would tie the candidates up from now until, all the way till the next meeting.
Well, we could do it all the same that day, right?
Whatever everybody's thought process would be there, I'm willing and able to put myself.
True thoughts?
Well, as James was talking, what I was envisioning, and it might not have been what James was envisioning, I was envisioning almost like an open house before your next commission meeting.
Yes, that's what I'd like to see, an open house. Again, I think that gives everybody in the community to have that opportunity to speak to them, and then they can, you know, maybe we put some names in, and they, you know, kind of like what we were doing with the A1A, the parish there, that, you know, people would write their suggestions of what they would like to see. We could then say, okay, you know, the resident so-and-so, or if they can remain anonymous, however we would want to go through that process. But I think that this is, you know, a decision that's beyond us, right? And I think it's a whole, you know, again, we need to take that holistic approach here.
So when you said similar to what we did with the town hall, are you talking about putting the questions in a written form so that it actually...
However, we, you know, it could be free flowing, where maybe they each have a table and, you know, individual individual residents go up. It doesn't have to be necessarily a formal.
I would probably recommend just doing a meet and greet style.
Yes, kind of like in that type of process, and just we go from there, and then essentially again it's going to be this elected body that makes that decision. But at least we can get the feedback, and I think it's a methodical process, and we've all done our due diligence. I think.
So how do we narrow them down to 3 at this point?
Are you ready to pick 3 or 2? I am.
I think
I'm ready to pick 3.
So.
Say them out loud. Do we write them down?
If you want to go down the line and name them, and then we can see where we have a consensus.
All right. You don't want to, instead of writing it?
Let's see. Let's go down the line and see where things merge and where things diverge, and we might that'll let Penny and I figure out where to go from there. But I think if you're comfortable announcing each of you who your top 3 would be, then we can figure out a process from there.
Okay. All right. My 3, not in any particular order: Katrina Powell, Mike Abel, John Drago.
Same as the mayor: Katrina Powell, Mike Abels, and John Drago.
I'm going to say it backwards. John Drago, Mike Abels, and Katrina Powell.
I had, well, I'll just let you go.
Yeah, the same 3.
Okay, same 3?
Same.
Okay, and I had Katrina, Cameron, and Abels.
That was easy. Where's the button?
Okay, so do you want to just go ahead and read them off again, just for the consensus?
Powell, Mike Abel, and John Drago.
Okay. Okay, next order of business is when will we set a time when we're going to have the quote-unquote town hall?
We need to ask them as well.
Just looking up open dates right now for you, and then you can direct staff to do whatever.
While Penny's looking at that, can we cover one other item of business that we need to get done? Sure. Mr. McFadden, I believe, is still willing to serve as acting until we can find the interim?
Absolutely.
And is it the commission's direction that Mr. McFadden remain as acting until that time, at least for the time being? Okay. Is that consensus?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
I would ask, though, that you read your email a little bit more often.
Ma'am?
I would ask that you read your emails a little bit more often.
When I walked in this morning, I had 90.
Well, but if you had read them over the weekend, you wouldn't have had 90. Just saying.
I had none Sunday morning when I finished them.
Yeah.
I nominate you as city manager.
So Tuesday, are we still working on that question? Did they agree? I was looking.
No, I could gather consensus on that Mr. McFadden will remain as acting.
So Tuesday, the 21st is open.
That's a candidates' night, women's Flagler Women's Club.
I have a bunch on the Monday, but there's in the calendar, and I'm not sure exactly what it was, is strike team briefings individually.
Then we have the centennial meeting at 4:30.
I knew there was something on the 20th because I remember
Chair, may I ask a question? Just in how you all envision it operating, but would it be feasible to have it maybe sometime a couple hours prior to our commission meeting, because then the candidates will all be here, the public who's interested will be here, and they can just stick around for the meeting, and then if the public, they've had their opportunity, then they can speak at the meeting and let you know while it's fresh in everybody's head, if that's what this is for. It's just for everybody to meet and formulate their opinions. That gives some time, and then it lets your candidates come for that and not have to keep shuttling back and forth to Flagler Beach. Just a thought.
23rd?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
On the 23rd, you also have your CRA meeting on the 23rd.
Oh, we do?
It's built into the meeting. So it's
built into the meeting, that's right.
Pack your lunches.
Okay, so what time? 4 o'clock?
I would think that if we're doing it all consecutive, I think that's enough time.
You think it's enough? Okay, 4 o'clock, okay. 23rd, 4 o'clock.
And since it about set up to your commission meeting, no special setup in here, it's just set up
Okay.
like usual.
And we are free, Drew, we're free to contact these individuals ourselves?
Yes, ma'am.
ahead of time? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That is, I was just thinking if I need phone numbers or anything, but I think I have emails for all of them, so that's what
I have phone numbers, Penny, if you need anybody's.
Yeah, if you could get that too. I mean, we can all look them up, but if, make it easier for us.
No, I'll send it to Penny.
Okay.
Okay, any additional questions, commissioners? Any clarity?
No, and thank you to all the candidates who showed up tonight.
Thank you.
I have a question. I know this will come up when we discuss it briefly. Interim city manager, contract pay, negotiations. Do we have any type of thing that is, at least if there's,
Thank you, because I will go ahead and, like I said in my earlier comments, I'll go ahead and prepare a generic comment or a generic contract. And I would base that to start on Mr. Whitson's, the pay structure of Mr. Whitson's contract, unless you tell me otherwise. So that's where, that would be the number I fill in that blank with, unless you tell me to do something else. And that's going to be the main one for an interim. We can work in some very basic, what do they do if they get sick, and they need to take a day off, that kind of stuff. But for a short term, the main one is going to be the pay.
okay, no, fine.
Any other questions?
They wouldn't need to necessarily know the closing date of, how long they're going to be here, because we don't know that.
That's right. That's part of the interim job, is you're there until
It's
they
not
find your
knowing.
replacement. Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion to adjourn.
Just before you do that, so the direction is what we discussed, to have the meet and greet before starting at 4. Okay, just want to make sure that was the direction staff.
Commence at 4 o'clock.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We're adjourned. Cameron, how you doing? Better not.